A few months back, Ichinose was in a meeting with the student council vice president. You see, Manabu declined her application to join the student council. However, Nagamo has taken an interest in her. This is due to her very good grades and reputation. However, most importantly to Nagamo, she's easy on the eyes. He blatantly lies, saying that Manabu rejected her because she's not in Class A. Nagamo, however, will most likely become president next year, and says he will gladly recruit her into the student council, if she's willing to reveal the reason that she wasn't placed in Class A. Ichinose takes a moment to contemplate this offer before explaining her past mistake. Jumping back to the present, we find Sakayanagi having a meeting with the student council president. Sakayanagi has come here today to acquire Nagamo's permission to crush Ichinose. You see, Ichinose is the newest member of the student council, and Sakayanagi would prefer not to acquire Nagamo's wrath. He tells her to go ahead, and she thanks him for this and the information he previously gave her. Nagamo then asks about Ayanokoji, though she denies knowing him. Thus, she leaves the office and encounters Kushida, who has come here today to apply for the student council. Upon arriving to class, we learn that Kei just recently broke up with Harada. Horikita then asks Ayanokoji if he's heard the numerous rumors going around about Ichinose. He has not, and he wonders how Ichinose is reacting to this situation. Horikita is unsure as well, and Ayanokoji says their best course of action is to not get involved. As class ends, Sakayanagi struts into the room asking for a moment of Yamauchi's time. Horikita warns him that this is probably a trap, however Yamauchi replies with, "I can handle a trap." Most of the class follows them into the hallway to witness Sakayanagi blatantly flirting with Yamauchi. Hasebe states this is obviously all just an act, as the pair walks away. The Ayanokoji group heads to the cafe and begins discussing whether or not Sakayanagi is actually interested in Yamauchi. Ayanokoji thinks she's probably faking, and Hasebe brings up Kei and Harada's breakup. She then talks about their classmate Michan, who has had a crush on Harada for quite a while. Yukimura then mentions the ever-approaching year-end exam, just as Hasebe receives a phone call from Miyaki, informing them of a potential fight. The group arrives to find a very pissed off Kanzaki straight up accusing Hashimoto of spreading the rumors. He doesn't deny it, and instead states that these might not just be mere rumors. Kanzaki immediately explains that Ichinose told him there's no need to worry about these rumors, to which Hashimoto points out wasn't denying them. Eventually, he does admit to spreading the rumors, however he claims not to be their source. Though after hearing all of this, Ayanokoji begins to believe that one of these rumors is probably true, and that Sakayanagi is more than likely the source. Then it's after this confrontation is over that we find out that Miyaki used to be a delinquent and actually grew up in the same area as Ryun. Now on his way back to the dorm, Ayanokoji spots Ichinose off in the distance. He debates going to talk to her, but decides against it since Hashimoto is currently following him. Michan then asks to have a conversation with Ayanokoji, so together they head on over to the cafe. Hashimoto follows them inside, and Mi states that Harada thinks highly of Ayanokoji. Next, she admits to having a crush on Harada, before they switch to discussing how she's a foreign exchange student from China. Hiyori then briefly joins them before they all head back to the dorms. It's after Michan leaves that Hiyori begins asking about Ichinose. She wants Ayanokoji to help her protect Ichinose, but he declines, instead telling her to go speak with Horikita or Harada. He goes upstairs to relax in his room, only to receive a message from Horikita. She's apparently going to have a meeting with Ichinose, and wanted to invite Ayanokoji to tag along. He heads over to her room, where they discuss the probability that these rumors originated from Sakayanagi. Horikita asks why she hasn't openly denied the rumors, but Ichinose just brushes off the question. She then tells them to not get involved before stepping out of the room. Ayanokoji then leaves to find Ichinose waiting outside, and she promptly apologizes for causing them so much worry. It's later that same night that Ayanokoji is woken up by an unknown caller, who simply says,
Ayanokoji Kiyotaka.
The caller then hangs up, and Ayanokoji assumes this to be a declaration of war from his father. 4 days go by, the rumors continue to spread, and Ayanokoji notices a cluster of people in the lobby. He pushes through to find a letter in his mailbox that simply reads, "Ichinose is a criminal." The girl in question then arrives, reads the letter, and just stands there completely stunned. Her friends encourage her to report this incident to the school, however she tells them to just let it go. Ayanokoji then heads upstairs to his dorm as Kamuro chooses to follow, more or less forcing her way into his room. She asks what Ayanokoji thinks of the letter, and he replies with indifference, followed by Kamuro explaining that she came here today without Sakayanagi knowing. She's even planning on revealing Ichinose's past, but she first needs to disclose how she came to work for Sakayanagi. You see, it was the first week of school and Kamuro was walking home from the convenience store when a classmate struck up a conversation. Sakayanagi immediately reveals that she watched Kamuro steal a beer, and she assumes it was out of sheer boredom. Sakayanagi, however, doesn't intend to report this incident to the school, and instead invites Kamuro to be her underling with the promise that she'll never be bored again. Jumping back to the present, Kamuro reveals that Ichinose is also a shoplifter. However, surprisingly, Kamuro wants Ayanokoji to save Ichinose. For multiple reasons, Ayanokoji doesn't fully trust Sakayanagi's pawn, and asks if she can prove her story. Kamuro drops her ID and leaves the room, only to return 10 minutes later with an ice-cold beer in hand. He inspects the beer, Kamuro leaves, and Ayanokoji heads to the convenience store. Though along the way, he receives an unexpected phone call from Manabu. He informs Ayanokoji that Kushida has asked Nagamo for help with getting Horikita expelled. Ayanokoji wonders if he's supposed to defend Horikita, and Manabu says,
"Of course not, but Kushida also named you."
It's the very next morning, as Ayanokoji is late for school, that he texts Kei asking to meet up later. On his way to school, Ayanokoji becomes a bit jealous upon watching Harada receive so many Valentine's Day gifts. Then after class, he heads over to Class B in search of Kanzaki, but is unable to find him. Though while he's there, Ayanokoji learns that Ichinose didn't come to school today. With nothing else to do, he decides to pay her a visit, but changes his mind upon seeing the crowd outside of her room. Later that same evening, Ayanokoji heads to an agreed upon location to meet up with Kei. They have some general conversation, followed by Ayanokoji asking if she's ready for the finals. She's not feeling so confident and asks Ayanokoji to help with her studies. She then asks why he set up this meeting, prompting Ayanokoji to show her the unknown phone number. Kei agrees to look into it before pulling out and handing him a box of chocolates. Of course, these were allegedly bought for Harada, but they broke up and she didn't want them to go to waste. Ayanokoji points out this makes her look like a potential partner, and she jokingly says just pay me back later. Hashimoto waltzes up, accusing them of having a hidden romantic relationship. Kei flawlessly transitions into a lie, explaining that she's having Ayanokoji deliver this chocolate to her crush. Hashimoto bows his head in apology, before immediately trapping Karuizawa against the wall. He begins aggressively flirting with Kei, in an obvious attempt to provoke Ayanokoji. This is ineffective, as Ayanokoji turns to leave, prompting Karuizawa to free herself and do the same. Upon returning to his dorm, Ayanokoji finds yet 2 more boxes of chocolate, bringing his total up to 5. He waits a couple of hours, then makes a trip upstairs to visit Ichinose, who is very slow to answer the door. It's immediately obvious that Ichinose has caught a cold, and she reassures him that the rumors do not bother her. Ayanokoji arrives to class the very next morning to find utter chaos. Horikita informs him that rumors have been posted on the school website, targeting classes B, C, and D. She then asks if the rumor regarding him liking Karuizawa is true, but he says of course not. He explains the incident with Hashimoto, just as Horikita orders Sudo to keep Yamauchi under control. And Horikita receives a message from Kanzaki, stating that Ichinose is absent once again. That evening, Ayanokoji is relaxing at home when he receives a phone call from a very flustered Kei. She goes on and on about the rumor involving them, and Ayanokoji tells her just to be glad it wasn't reversed. Sometime later, we see a meetup involving classes A, C, and D. Hiyori asks if Hashimoto started these rumors, to which he replies, no. Hashimoto informs them the new president doesn't mind a bit of violence, and he even throws a kick at Miyake to prove his point. Ibuki and Ishizaki demand to speak with Sakayanagi, but of course that's not going to happen. They both attack, and Ayanokoji picks up Ibuki's school ID, noticing something rather unusual. Miyake steps in, pinning Ishizaki to the ground, only to be pushed back and restrained. There's another round of fighting, followed by Hashimoto bringing up Ayanokoji's relationship with Karuizawa. Hasebe and Sakura both stare suspiciously, as he explains it's nothing romantic. Hiyori then successfully diffuses the situation, causing everyone to go their separate ways. Now alone in his room, Ayanokoji takes a moment to call Manabu, who is genuinely shocked by what Ayanokoji found on the student ID. Multiple days have gone by, and Ichinose finally returns to class, one day before the final. Sakayanagi boldly marches into Class B, attracting the attention of all the first years. She declares that she's coming to save Class B, revealing that Ichinose is acting as the class treasurer. Sakayanagi informs them that this is extremely dangerous, but is only met with opposition. Ichinose then confidently walks to the front of the room, bowing her head and revealing that she is indeed a criminal. The entire room goes deathly silent, as she explains that she's shoplifted once before. You see, Ichinose and her two sisters were raised by their hard-working but single mother. However, said mother overworked herself and wound up being hospitalized. Due to this, they didn't have the money to purchase a birthday present for one of the sisters, so Ichinose did the only thing she could do and stole the present. This made her sister so happy, until mom realized what happened and drug Ichinose back to the store to apologize. Luckily, she didn't get in any legal trouble. However, this ruined her reputation, which resulted in her hiding away for half a year. So even after hearing all of this, Class B is still supporting Ichinose. So Sakayanagi reminds them their points are literally being held by a known thief. Ichinose proudly states that she would never take advantage of her classmates, but Sakayanagi still orders her to return everyone's points. Kanzaki asks for Ichinose's opinion, so she confidently says,
"The past is in the past,"
and asks her class to continue trusting in her. The room erupts with cheers, signaling Sakayanagi's defeat, when suddenly Chabashira, Hoshinomiya, and Nagamo enter into the room. They've come to announce that the school is taking action against these rumors, and is going to punish anyone who continues to spread them. Class B cheers ever louder, leaving Sakayanagi with no choice but to retreat. Then upon returning to Class C, Ayanokoji immediately receives a phone call from Sakayanagi. He goes to her location, and Sakayanagi compliments him on saving Ichinose, but asks why he did it. Ayanokoji responds, asking why she used Kamuro to get him involved. She denies doing this until he points out the expiration date on the beer was dated for the beginning of the school year. She finally admits that she did this to get his attention, and proceeds to challenge Ayanokoji to see who can rank higher on the upcoming special exam. If Ayanokoji wins, she will have to drop out of school. But if Sakayanagi wins, he must reveal to everyone that he's the hidden mastermind. Jumping back in time, it's now the same day that Ayanokoji spoke with Kamuro. It's roughly midnight when Kushida enters into his room with a box of chocolates in hand. She asks what this is about, so he explains he's seeking to know people's secrets. She is reluctant to betray everyone's trust, and asks what Ayanokoji will do with this information. His plan is to save Ichinose by creating so many rumors that the school will be left with no choice but to get involved. As compensation, he offers up to half of all the private points that he will gain in the future. Kushida agrees and gives him the information he needs, all the while being completely unaware that Ayanokoji is planning to have her expelled. Then as she leaves, he picks up the phone to call a very unexpected but unspecified person. The next step of the plan happened on Valentine's Day and involved paying a visit to Vice President Kiriyama. It took a bit of convincing, but Kiriyama does agree to post the rumors online for Ayanokoji. He then chooses a day to go talk to Ichinose during their lunch break. She speaks to him through the closed door, asking him to just leave her alone, though Ayanokoji doesn't listen and instead sits down for the remainder of lunch. He does the same routine 2 more times, but doesn't even receive a response. It's on the 4th day that Ayanokoji decides to just casually begin talking, and is met by Ichinose asking why he hasn't told her to return to school. He explains that he's just waiting for her to come to terms with the incident, which leaves her very confused. Ayanokoji admits to knowing she's a shoplifter, and says he's ready to listen. She winds up unloading all of her stress, worries, and shame on Ayanokoji, who winds up skipping class so he can continue to listen. It's now the day after Ichinose confessed her crime to Class B. She thanks Ayanokoji for picking her up, and he offers to listen anytime she needs it. Next, she talks to Nagamo, who meets eyes with Ayanokoji, almost as if he's aware that Ayanokoji repaired Ichinose before Mr. President had time to manipulate her. She then returns to Ayanokoji to gift him a box of chocolate.